I think we're facing an existential threat, and we have been for many years. I'd like to comment on His Excellency, the President of Palau, that was talking about the good grasshopper and the bad grasshopper. And he said something really important that resonated with me, Mr. President. You were talking about we can't, ignore climate change. We can't wish it away. And yet we have the world's largest economy changing policy, moving away from the UNFCCC. And actually President Trump, removed the United States from various organizations, UN Oceans, UN Water, and dozens others. And I wonder if the world can still be on track to achieve goals if we don't have big funding from countries like the United States, and who's going to fill that gap. And I want to start off with this macro question, because I think it's really important that you are in this room, that are wanting to have this conversation, and of course economies here in the Gulf that are still committed to sustainability and climate change. And Dr. Abdullah, I'd like to start with you. So,
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be here, surrounded by these experts and leaders in the fields of water, environment, and sustainability. Really, I learned a lot since yesterday, joining many sessions, mainly the opening ceremony, the address of His Excellency in the opening session yesterday. If you remember that the most dangerous species arrived within the last 10 seconds in the 24 hours, and all of this happened during that last 10 seconds, which is a human being. Coming back to the question, many occasions in which have been raising the issue of the most important is the affordability of the fund, the accessibility of the fund in order to help the countries to achieve the goals of sustainability agenda, and also to match the requirements and fulfill the requirements of climate change, biodiversity, desertification conventions, and the rest of the conventions, in order to keep the planet sustainable for ourselves and also for the coming generations. So all of us agree, but this is a certain decisions taken nationally in some countries, depends on the presidency, direction, policy, and strategy. And we been here within the last 10 years. We have been watching the extreme change in the world direction when we started the importance of the climate change tackling since 2012, and then the dramatic change 2016, and again coming back to the agenda of climate change by 2020, and also that change 2 years ago. So really the policy is leading the planet, this is a fact, while we are really in a very emergency need for more environmental and sustainable efforts. Really we are far away from our targets, the gap increasing, and the value of coming back to the track will be really maybe outside of the control. One thing is also very important. When we discuss the climate change cannot be discussed without discussing the biodiversity, that certification, since the ecosystem is one.
Yes.
The Earth, planet, is one. All of us and all the biodiversity are species living in this ecosystem. So how we can tackle the issues of climate change without caring about the biodiversity loss, about the certification, about how to rehabilitate these habitats, vegetation, planting trees, protecting the species, and achieving the target of 30 by 30. So it is very important to provide the required fund, and also it is very important to re-engineer the relations in between the three conventions of Rio: climate change, desertification, biodiversity, because the ecosystem is one.
Yeah. I mean, that's super interesting. And you were talking about having the right funding, because we need that. That's going to be at the center of this at the end of the day. We are far away from our goals. We're far away from our UN Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, that's the reality. Minister, again, I want you to tackle this macro question for me. It's really disappointing in many elements to see some countries moving away from seeing the biggest threat to humanity being climate, being the environment, being the reality that we face, and distracted by a lot of other things. Does that worry you?
For us in the Pacific, in the Blue Pacific continent, when those announcements were made, given some of the views that climate change was a hoax, but we didn't lose hope, and we still don't, because we have global partners.
Yeah.
The key is solidarity, and how we can work with other global partners on building up what the Union President has just talked about, on more predictable financial structures, on how we can access finance, other finance facilities that are available, such as blue bonds, other mixed facilities, concessional ones. These are some of the things that we know that other partners who are also facing the effects of climate change globally, and also with the view and also with a heart to protect biodiversity. For the Pacific, in the recent COP in Belém in Brazil, our message was consistent on a 1.5 degrees Celsius, given that we face the brunt of climate change on the acidity of the sea and also the rising sea. And the effects are felt in our coastlines, as President Whip has already alluded to. And this is something that we edify our voice when we go around globally. But again, the withdrawal of funds through those that were funding the UN plus other organizations in the Pacific like SPREP didn't dampen our spirit. And we know that there will be other measures available and other bigger partners, especially in this region, plus other regions that come in to fill that big shoes now in the future. But these kind of forums build up those relationships, knowing that that we have a common understanding of the problem that we have in the world.
So someone else, I mean, other countries are filling in the vacuum that has been created, essentially.
Well, there are other financial facilities that are there. Mm-hmm. The UN Ops has recently go into direct funding in terms of a program called CCAF, a community adaptation program that goes directly to communities, doesn't go through those that are accredited. This makes it more direct to our communities, especially those that are feeling the vulnerability in the communities that need relocation, that need adaptation, or other mitigation measures.
Exactly, because it's multifaceted, right?
Multifaceted.
It's multifaceted. Your Excellency, Boëll, you're with the United Nations, resident coordinator here in the UAE. Are you feeling the impact?
First of all, thank you very much for being part of this prestigious panel. And just for clarification, I represent the Secretary General in the United Arab Emirates. So you will allow me to also mention points that have been already reiterated by the Secretary General, because you kindly put us in the macro picture, and thank you very much for this. I think one point that has been highlighted by the Secretary General is very much that we need to make sure that we remain in a world where it is the rule of law that prevails. Right now, we see that it is the law of power instead of the power of law that is prevailing. We need to make sure that alliances that are being created among different countries, and the UAE is the perfect example, and this forum is the perfect example of the great alliances that are happening between different countries. So we make sure that we are not in a unipolar world, that we're not also going back to a bipolar world with different spheres of influence, but that we're very much in a multipolar world where also all states, because let's not forget that the United Nations is made of 193 member states. And this is, one country, one voice, regardless of the size of the economic power. And those conventions that are being signed are also the majority of the countries that prevail. So just to highlight again the fact that we really want to hope that countries that have decided to get away from international commitments, international conventions for the good of the people and the planet, can come back to the table. And this is obviously the diplomatic efforts that not only the United Nations must do, but also the friends of the friends, and having some discussion among member states, because again, this is for the good of the whole humanity. And it is not, unfortunately, one member state. There are actually several member states that are decreasing their contribution to multilateral system, which is undermining also the normative role of the UN. And this is what we are talking about the legal framework and making sure that we can abide by it. And one last point, because you mentioned financing, I think, the financing for development agreement and convention that took place in Sevilla last July reiterated the importance of the private sector to really be at the heart of the financing for development. The SDGs require every year $4 trillion. Every year. So by 2030, it's another 20. And then every year we have an overall $33 billion for humanitarian assistance. It cannot be that the public sector, that governments are the only one actually being at the heart.
We're not hitting the
financing.
4 trillion every year, are we?
I'm sorry?
We're not hitting the 4 trillion in investment, are we?
Far from it.
Far from it. It's so scary. It really is. It absolutely scares me, because this is our future. It's our children's future. This is the reality that we'll be facing. You said something interesting, and you said it's not just one country, it's quite a few partners that have kind of pulled back. On balance, though, would you say that we are still on track, or are we falling behind currently in the state that we're in right now as the world is seeing geotectonic shifts?
First of all, there are many studies and many think tanks and researchers that are actually looking at different scenarios. And there has been 26 scenarios of risk that have been put on the table. And you've got more optimistic and more dramatic ones. I think we're still on time. Obviously, we're very late in the SDGs. The UN DESA has issued the latest report mentioning that we're only 35% on track, and we're 5 years from the deadline. Even less now. So definitely we're late, but we had a big pandemic. We have also learned a lot. And I think that if we actually already consider that it is doomed, there is no way we can actually save. So I think we really need to focus on accelerating the efforts, accelerating the type of partnerships, making sure that we do not oppose multilateral versus philanthropy, because one is faster and the other one actually, deals with actually more structural issues. We really need to be making sure that every single partnership works, localization happens, and that we put the people at the center.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. Minister, I want you to jump in here, and I want to talk about marine protected areas. And frankly, we talk about the blue economy, but there has to be a balance, the socioeconomic reality that people face as well, and finding that balance. So how's Fiji, who's, you're at the coalface of climate change in many ways. You face it head on. How are you balancing that?
How we are balancing that?
Can you balance that? I don't know.
There's a difficulty, but there's a challenge, I can say, on how we balance that. One is on the conservation part, where we're trying to protect and increase food sources, and also the life that is beneath the ocean, and more natural, more traditional through custodian and the traditional knowledge that the custodians of the sea have. These are some, and the modern methods of fishing that is coming. The challenge is always on the providing the alternate livelihood for them. One is conservation and protecting that area, what we call in the Pacific tambu, where cannot be no-take zone. And if we mark an area to be a no-take zone, then what's the alternative livelihood for them on land or any other place that can substitute that source of income for them? That's a challenge that we have, and sometimes people break the tambu because what they earn from the value of the resources they have in the sea cannot be matched by what is the alternate. The second thing that we face in Fiji, especially when you go into the 30 by 30 target, is that the balancing conservation, preservation, sustainability versus the industry commercial interest, where the Ministry of Fisheries gives out license to commercial fishing boats. At the same time, they are not monitored. Where they drop the line probably is not detected, and they normally take a lot. And this is something that we try to balance, whether what amount we should be part of a percentage of conservation. And recently we just did a report through some philanthropists through Blue Prosperity. And the report has been that there needs to be stronger protection and measures put in place in some of the areas that needs to be protected. And this has been a challenge because the pushback has been from the industry and those that are licensed, especially those that are fishing in Fiji waters, especially foreign vessels.
Wow. It's a harsh reality. It's actually, I need a second to absorb that, because this is the thing. You're coming up against, again, socioeconomic impact versus protecting the marine life. Do you need to be coordinating a lot more with the Ministry of Fisheries? And they're getting a lot of pushback, right, from commercial vessels and commercial companies. What's that like?
So what we've done, we recently, like a month ago, we've launched a blue economy framework just to be the skeleton. Then now we'll go into the meat of that skeleton to fill in the regulations on how the industry should be managed, plus our sustainability and conservation efforts should be also be operating. On that, how we can find a balance in the future on how we balance both out, whether there should be a win-win situation, but at the same time, the industrial needs should be not at the cost of sustainability, because sustainability more towards biodiversity, all related to the life that relates to climate change and the plight that we are facing.
Dr. Abdullah, I want you to come in here. Oman is really fascinating. And one thing that I discovered, and I've been many times to do some stories, I've been fortunate to snorkel as well. It's really phenomenal. But one thing that I discovered in all our conversations was sustainability was at the center of it. And that's why Oman doesn't really want a lot of tourism, because you want to protect what you have. And I'm going to ask you this balancing act scenario, because you also are very much focused on your economy. Clearly, we know what drives Oman's economy as well. You're looking at diversifying. Is it starting to become one of the priority agendas for Oman?
Oman 2040 vision lies on 4 pillars.
Yeah.
Economy is one of them, and the sustainable environment is the second one. So the sustainability is a cross-sectorial target. So all of the economic sectors should be more sustainable rather than keeping conventional or linear. So our economy is transforming from the linear to be sustainable, and the target is within the coming 5 years. So most of the sectors right now are implementing a sustainable initiative, either in the industry, oil and gas, even though the fishing is one of them. So we are working more on the quality. So we are encouraging the high income eco-tourism rather than the massive eco-tourism with the low income. So the negative impact of that one is very huge, and the negative impact here and is very low comparing to the first one. So we are encouraging the high income and the quality of the ecotourism, and also increasing the number of the projects of aquaculture. There is an ambitious target in the fishing sector to achieve a goal of almost 40% the fishing producing from aquaculture by 2030.
So we're talking fish farms and so forth, yeah?
Yeah, but by the end of the day, more than that, we have maritime nature reserves, a number of them. Even though there is a target in the army and also in the police to protect the maritime environmentally. So all the government working as a one team to achieve the sustainability goals. But by the end of the day, one hand cannot clip alone. So if we spend a big efforts in protection and keeping our natural resources sustainable, if the world is not matching that tone, that means nothing will happen.
But that's not going to derail you. You're still going to push ahead.
Many
and invest.
activities are happening in the high seas, outside of our controls, disposing, releasing of solid waste, huge stress on the nature fisheries. So who can control that? Who can play the role of the police in the high sea?
Who can?
So the belief is there. The belief is there. The most of the population are well educated, but the many illegal activities.
Yeah. So you're talking about fishing trawlers.
Exactly,
You're talking
and
about
we are in Oman, open to the Arab Sea, Oman Sea, which are also directly connected to the Indian Ocean. So many waste, many disposal of oil spills are reaching our coastal because of those activities.
So who's the police then? I saw.
We even though try to use the technology and we're using the images from satellite to send some activities to the court, and we managed to succeed from time to time.
Have you succeeded? Have you won some of those cases?
Yeah.
Who are the companies that are to blame?
We can stop any ship illegally doing any activities when we have an evidence from the national law, and we did that with some neighbor country, and that ship was stopped until they pay back the...
That's a lot of effort, but you know, you've got to be on it all day long. And I see, Minister, you're... Give me a sense, because you're also dealing with fishing trawlers.
Yeah. Fishing trawlers.
Fishing trawlers, illegal fishing.
Illegal fishing.
Affecting your maritime industry.
Of course, it's damaging our...
So I always get a sense that we're on the same page. People here are on the same page, but someone's in a different book, focusing on something completely different and not caring, right? Who are the culprits here?
I think not us.
Who? And not us.
It's just the way we are going to shape the narrative.
Yeah.
And be more convincing enough to reveal by data. That's why we need research. We need some baseline in terms of the data we have. This is some of the areas probably where we need finance so that we are able to measure what we've lost in a given time. So that people are evidence-based nowadays.
Evidence-based, focus on the science, focus on the numbers. Okay, we've got very little time left, but I've got one last question. Are you feeling hopeful, Your Excellency?
Cautiously hopeful.
Cautiously hopeful.
Because it very much depends on the power of the collective and the political will to, in the coming UN Water Conference that will happen, also to make sure that whatever was discussed at the UN Ocean Conference in Nice is still integrated and that there is real commitment beyond words, because it requires collective action. And as we know, the borders of the oceans and the borders of criminal activities also are very slippery. So that requires collective efforts, but I mean, not only collective efforts, it's really the coordination of the different sectors. And this has been mentioned also in other discussions around the UN Water Conference and the rest. We really need to make sure that the different actors are not only talking, but that they are integrating their work together so there can be real action. And again, the Ocean Conference, there was a real declaration for action. This must not be forgotten. And UN Water Conference is not only about fresh water, it is much broader. So that's the hope.
Let me ask you this. I mean, you were saying for action and declaration of action, but are you seeing that action materialize?
It does, definitely. I mean, and there is a lot of willingness, and, you know, the people sitting in the different forum at the World Government Summit are a clear example that there is a real action that is taking place from several member states, that the private sector is also interested, that philanthropy is also interested, that the UN is there. I have never seen actually so many senior UN officials attending, you know, a side event of the World Government Summit. So clearly there is momentum, there is willingness, despite the big noises that we can hear of a minority, there is the strong willingness. So action can happen, but it has to be well coordinated.
Absolutely.
And the capital needs to be on the table
So
too.
let's not get distracted by the noise.
Correct.
Minister, very quickly, cautiously optimistic,
Yeah.
hopeful?
I'll repeat what you've just said and what the advisor to His Excellency, the President of UAE, said yesterday. Let's not focus on the noise, let's focus on reality.
Yes,
And the reality is what we know, and that's what we need to
100%.
put our full focus on.
Dr. Abdullah?
Yeah, the only way is to work together, and that will be the movement could be slower, because if you are going alone, you can go very fast. But by the end of the day, the group will reach a certain destination with a good success.
Well, I have to say, I feel hopeful having people like you at the forefront of this conversation and action. So I thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for my fantastic guests today.